Let's go!
A quick thank you to the T5 peeps, Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, DuckMachine, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Feudic Jarl, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Story number 1. Stellar Wonder, written by Arclight Magus. Hitz still didn't understand the ship's human. She was prone to wandering off after shift and doing activities that were not obviously productive. Feeding and rest periods were quite understandable by Hitz's learning, but she spent hours with her terminal, creating cacophonous sounds which had been explained as external expression of internal hormone balancing, described in the Human Guide of Emotion as joy. Following one shift, Hitz was completing one feeding cycle and noted the ship's human wasn't there. Hitz thought back to the events involving the pirates and the ship's human, namesake Victoria, and reviewed a number of internal queries Hitz had regularly reviewed following the incident. She had not expressed any aggression against the ship's crew, including Hitz, but appeared capable of great violence, like the class warrior. Hitz discerned via recursion and deductive logic that a solution method for better understanding would be to query Victoria. Hitz queried the ship's computer for namesake Victoria, query location and ship self. The ship responded with a namesake Victoria, species human, class engineer, current location, ship self, holographic suite 3. Hitz knew the holographic suites. The suites were commonly used for visual diagnosis of issues or review of scouting records. But Hitz didn't use the suites. Hitz was not trained to use the suites, and Hitz was uncertain why Victoria would use one. Hitz went to holographic suite 3 and prompted the computer to allow entry. Upon the door opening, Hitz was utterly stunned. Inside the holographic suite 3 appeared a vast field of black with points of white dotted irregularly around the space. However, seeing anything beyond the vast empty blackness and the slowly drifting points of light was impossible for Hitz. Except the light of the corridor in which he had stood shone in enough light to gently and barely illuminate the reclining figure of Victoria. She sat up and looked at Hitz with a facial expression, puzzlement. "Something wrong, Hitz?" Victoria questioned. "Not active tasking. Query, why is Victoria using holographic suites?" Hitz managed. Hitz's visual senses getting lost at looking into what Hitz knew was a 5 meter by 5 meter by 5 meter space, but fully appeared to be the external to the ship and experienced a curious sense of scale. "I am looking through the stellar cartography logs. Your people have been in space a lot longer than mine have," Victoria said, still sitting up. "Answer understood and processed. Query, why is Victoria reviewing stellar cartography logs when Victoria is class engineer?" Hitz prompted, still rooted in place in the corridor. "I wasn't always an engineer, and it helps me put it all into perspective," Victoria replied. And before Hitz could respond, she had stood, moved to Hitz across the void of space, grasped one forelimb over Hitz, and applied motion direction to direct Hitz to follow her back into the gaping void. Had Victoria been truthfully forceful, Hitz had no doubts that Victoria could have vigorously commanded by physical input Hitz into the space. However, Hitz relied on Victoria and understood the prompted direction. Despite Hitz's misgivings about the visually apparent space, Hitz was led into the blackness away from the safety of the corridor. Behind Hitz, the door on the corridor whirred shut and appeared to vanish into the inky blackness that wrapped the whole room. Hitz felt awash with many nervous system chemicals and was on the verge of entering a non-threatening posture when Victoria spoke to Hitz. "Hitz, my people were alone for so long. We didn't know how to grow beyond our small space, and so we were very different from the Harai Mirror," Victoria said calmly, looking directly at Hitz. Hitz, having not heard the formal name of Hitz's species in several ship cycles, was a bit confused by the statement. If Hitz's confusion was evident, Victoria showed no evidence of heeding it. "My people have a saying that you have to put everything into perspective. So I like to just see how big it all is, and to try understand it. And sometimes even just to wonder," Victoria continued, breaking eye contact with Hitz to look around the vast blackness with interspersed points of light. "Computer, stellar cartographic record 41752, center of point 13372019C, Scale for 0.1 light years. Enhance object lighting. The space around Hiyitz blurred with points of light speeding through the room until it settled again on a myriad of lights surrounding them at all lone point between the two of them. This is humanity's home system, Hiyitz, Victoria said, appearing to cradle the small point of light between them. Hiyitz's mind was spinning, struggling to keep up with the entirety of the experience. Hiyitz could only nod, a human gesture Hiyitz had learned from the human guide from the several weeks with Victoria. A single motion from Victoria, the point of light grew almost in an explosion of light and color. Reflexively, Hiyitz moved to a safe position. After a moment or two, Victoria pressed on Hiyitz, indicating that Hiyitz was safe despite the light show. All around Hiyitz and Victoria was a solar system. A brilliant sun shone off to the side. A number of planets were scattered in the blackness, some visible only because of the enhanced object lighting and object labeling. This was my home system, Hiyitz, and no matter how far this ship takes me, it'll always be a home to me and my kind. But I have to be able to see more than just this little home. Computer, scale for 5,000 light years, Victoria said, a strange vocal note in her voice. The lights blurred around them again, and now the two of them stood amidst a vast darkness with an almost uncountable number of points of light surrounding them, some closer, some further. The small point of light hung once again between them. Hiyitz, some ships I have to wonder if what we do really matters, so I come here to get a little sense of scale of it all, Victoria said, pressing a hand against the front part of Hiyitz. Hiyitz almost had to self-query if Hiyitz recalled anything of the human guide about something like this. It was overwhelming and very uncomfortable to be in this space. And yet, there was something that Hiyitz didn't have an explanation for about the entirety of the experience, Victoria's presence adding something to it. Query. Victoria will be mentally well to perform duties, Hiyitz managed, still not comprehending all of what was happening. Yes, Hiyitz. I'll be all right, Victoria said. Query. Will Victoria show Hiyitz how holographic suite works? Hiyitz questioned, the inquiry seeming to come from that strange sensation within Hiyitz. I'd love to, Victoria responded, a small smile on her face as the stars moved around them. End of story. Story number 2. Industry. Written by I.R. Good at Writing. Which race in the coalition is our biggest threat? Instructor Galt asked the classroom full of inexperienced soldiers. His 12 eyes looked around the room independently, waiting for a recruit to speak up. No one did. This isn't a trick question, he said with a hint of annoyance. If the Eternal Crusade is to succeed, you have to know this, and you aren't dishonoring the King of Kings by admitting our enemies are strong. Someone sitting in one of the desks at the far end of the room raised a tentacle. Speak, Instructor Galt said. The Kokaraks, sir, the recruit said. That's a good guess. 10 feet of muscle and raw power. Real bastards to deal with on the battlefield. But no, they aren't the most dangerous. The recruit nodded and looked disappointed. Instructor Galt looked around the room. A few more people raised their tentacles. He picked a soldier in the front row. I've got a few friends who came back from the front. They all said the Yolterine are the worst race to encounter. I hear an entire company can blend in with the environment. You can't see them until you're almost stepping on them. By then, it's too late. An interesting opinion, but your friends are wrong. Instructor Galt shook his head. Come on, everyone, think bigger. What's stopping us from annihilating the coalition? The recruit shifted around their desks and whispered to each other, trying to come up with an answer. The recruit in the middle of the class rose to speak at the prodding of his fellow soldiers. We think the Thrax are the biggest problem. With their hive mind, they can coordinate attacks above. Enough! Instructor Galt cut the air with the tentacle. All those races are ferocious enemies on the battlefield. Each one of them can be beaten with superior tactics, numbers, and firepower. He took a deep sigh and steadied his eyes. The biggest threat in the coalition is thousands of light years away from the front. Humans, They don't have a hive mind, cloaking skin, or great strength. Their deadliest weapon is industry. The recruits in the classroom weren't following him. He gritted his teeth and tried to explain. Do you really think the Coralax have the ability to build armor that only our heaviest Gauls cannons can punch through, then mass produce it in the millions? What about the Scionians? At the start of the war, they only just discovered FTL drives. Now they're flying around in capital ships the size of small moons. Instructor Galt pounded a tentacle against his podium, causing the class of soldiers to jump. Without the damned humans, we would have cleared half the galaxy by now. Every projectile that flies past your head and each artillery shell launched in your direction was made by them. For each ship shut down, they'll build 5 more to take its place. The room was silent. Instructor Galt regained his composure and addressed the recruits again. Humans are the most dangerous race because they'll make every day worse than the last until we can't fight anymore. We can't sit around and wait a year or a decade to win. We have to go out there and beat them now. He paused, giving the soldiers one last look. Class dismissed. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.